This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien starts the show by looking into the futures, cash, and exports of the grain market. Joel DeRouchey, K-State Extension swine specialist, keeps today's show rolling as he discusses the new swine nursery that will benefit students, the industry, and stakeholders. The show ends with a weather update from K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. He explains who saw severe weather this past week and if we can expect moisture in the coming week. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Friday show with a grain market update from K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien. Dan, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Shelby.
Dan, what are we seeing on the futures market?
Well, we've seen some strength over the past week. Corn's up about, from a week ago, we're up 10, 15, 20 cents in the corn market. You've got on yesterday's market, the July contract closed at 463 and three quarters, up 2 cents, and D's harvest contract 453 and a quarter. You know, everybody has their own bellwether indicator that they watch. To me, it's I guess I think things are healthy in the corn market when we're over $4.50. And we had dropped below that down to about 440, 441 thereabouts, back up a little bit higher. So that's positive news. For soybeans, November soybeans at 10.55 and quarter, and literally from a week ago, that's just about 19, 20 cents higher. And for wheat, July wheat, $5.40 here on yesterday's close. And a week ago, we were basically 9.5 to 10 cents lower. So some positive factors that come into the market. Some of it has having to do with exports. Some worries about planting progress, the Eastern Corn Belt with moisture, other different factors, a little bit of weakness coming in on the U.S. dollar, helping to move exports along. And by the way, as the futures market looks around for factors, it does see the continued strong U.S. corn export numbers that have come in. And here for the week ending May the 15th, we had 63 million bushels, need a pace of about 51 meet the USDA's projections. So that's really good. Positive news. Even a little bit of life on the grain sorghum side, about 1.2 million bushels of movement, and we would need a jump up to 3 million bushels a week to meet the USDA's projection. Point with grain sorghum, of course, continues to be the deliberate vacation of the demand sector on the part of the Chinese, as long as these trade issues are at issue between the U.S. and China, still discussing tariff this and limitation that. I would say that on the positive side, if we do see that the U.S. and China come back together, I would wonder if one of the first things that would start to react pretty quickly would be on the grain sorghum side. Again, just because China does have that need. So you got that happening. And on the wheat side, we've even in support of that dime increase, and even with harvest coming on, where we'll have sizable supplies, probably a combination of low prices and a little bit of weakening of the U.S. dollars led us to a really pretty good week this week with regard to hard red winter wheat exports. Had, again, for the week ending May the 15th, 6.7 million bushels, need a pace of about, a normal pace here of late's been more like 1 to 2 to 3 million. We're coming to the end of this old crop marketing year, and no doubt some of the purchases will roll over to the new crop marketing year. That'll start here June 1. That's just around the corner. Point is, we for this week we've had some pretty decent movement for hard red winter wheat, and of course that helps the overall wheat, I guess, sector in terms of export movement. So positive. Even though we'd seen a little bit higher soybean prices, that really wasn't driven so much by at least the reported sales that we'd had in the last week. But overall, you still have had pretty good support from soybean meal, soybean oil exports. Again, soybean oil exports continue on a strong pace, having to do a lot with some countries in Asia shifting their soybean oil sectors over towards domestic use for fuels rather than exporting it themselves. So you've got that happening. And I do think when we talk about where the markets will go, I guess we're primed for a surprise. The prevailing positiveness of the market towards the size of the corn crop and corn soybean crops now both in Brazil, although they've had strong rains in Argentina, probably going to cut back, reduce their ability to harvest their crops down there. Two back and forth factors affecting what's coming out of that part of the world. It still surprises me, when we look at the moisture maps in Brazil. Gosh, it's showing dry as a bone through there, and but yet those sectors, the independent groups that rate crop size or give their opinions are still saying, "Gosh, record high coming." So we'll see what happens. There was some news in the wheat market this week that was a pretty big deal. China had come out here recently and indicated publicly that they were telling their farmers or giving their farmers advice on how to salvage any wheat that they could. They've had drought, debilitating drought in some of their wheat areas. So, some of the strength in the wheat market that we've seen here about a dime, that's been positive, but really in the long run, if China comes into the world wheat market, and it may or may not be to the United States, but if they buy elsewhere, they're still gobbling up, crowding out other, taking up, using up available supplies, crowding out other buyers from around the world, and eventually forcing business to come to the United States. So we're I guess I'll be interested to see how that works its way through the markets here in coming days. So how, when you ask your question, how are the futures doing? We're dealing with uncertainty. There's news coming, both pro and con, all over the place. Really focusing on U.S. growing conditions. In general, our plantings for corn, for grain sorghum, harvest for wheat, generally a little bit ahead of pace. Even for soybeans, plantings right now, overall, at least in Kansas, looking pretty good. Again, some of those concerns we talked about with rains that in some of the 3I states holding things back a little bit. Overall, we're watching weather, and there still is the overall idea among climatologists that once we get through the spring, that they have a heightened sensitivity to what could be a set of dry conditions out there in June, July, and August. And again, when you talk about that, Shelby, right now, it sounds like you're just rattling a saber trying to run the markets one way or the other. I guess my point in talking about it is that, hey, there's a lot of risk still to be dealt with in the markets, and the futures right now, and as we look at them today, they're taking whatever they have in hand. They're assuming great weather all the way through. They're assuming normal weather. In fact, and that's what the USDA NASS is doing. They're not accounting for any weather uncertainty. So with that, given our computerized trading that we've got right now, we tend to plug in large crops and just plan on that being the end outcome. Well, it's premature to just plan on that without knowing that, hey, we've got to get through the next 90 days, and the next 90 days are anything but certain.
What are we seeing for the cash market?
Of course, the big issue with cash markets is to watch the wheat as harvest approaches. Average wheat prices actually have ticked up again as the futures have come up a little bit. You see in Salina, Topeka area, and also Hutchinson, you've seen cash prices, top cash prices at the terminals, at the market centers at about 520, all uniform at 520. And a week ago, we were looking at nothing over 5. In fact, 496 was about the highest. So kind of welcome, a little bit of welcome strength for people that will be harvesting wheat and looking at where things are going. So you got that occurring, and the cash corn prices, again, as the futures have moved up, they've tended to move up as well. The highest price, $4.63 for cash corn in the Garden City region, at least amongst the areas that we watch. Again, Colby area, Salina, Topeka, Garden City, Hutchinson, Pittsburgh. $4.63 the high, $4.43 Topeka. Again, $4.33 in Hutchinson and Pittsburgh, Salina, $4.23, and out at Colby about $4.13. So it is as it is. Sorghum The highest prices at about $383 coming in uniformly at Topeka, Garden City, and Hutchinson, $373 everywhere else in Colby, Salina, and Pittsburgh. So as we've talked about, if exports were to come in and help the sorghum market, that would be a tremendous thing. Right now, it's not domestic demand that's our issue. It's the counted on international demand that's not come in strong yet. And for soybeans, we have seen some areas of the state jump a fair amount higher. You wonder if they're filling trains or just what they're doing. The Topeka area has a top bid, 1037, 1023 at Hutchinson, 1018 Pittsburgh. Again, that's down southeast Kansas. You got a crush plant functioning down there just like you do in the east central part of the state around Topeka. And weaker out to the west, 988 in Garden City, 958 in Colby, Salina about 1004, as we mentioned, Hutchinson about 1023. So anyway, it's interesting to watch the trends. If you're just betting the seasonality coming into wheat harvest, you'd wonder what we'll see. It'd be really nice for people that don't have on-farm storage, that are taking wheat to town, to be able to go ahead and have a decent price to sell into. I guess we'll just have to see. And we're having this discussion, you and I are right now, at the same time the current U.S. administration is having negotiations with important countries on trade issues. So it sounds like at least the U.S.-China situation is sort of put on hold for about 90 days, or about 75 now. So we'll see where all that goes and how that might break loose some demand on down the road.
Dan, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you very much, Shelby. Take care.
That was K-State grain economist Dan O'Brien. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but stick around because we have more for you up ahead. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our show talking about a new K-State Swine Teaching and Research Center nursery with K-State Extension swine specialist Joel DeRouchey. Joel, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on.
Joel, what is this new facility?
Yeah, so at our K-State, our Swine Research and Teaching Center, located just north of Manhattan, where we have many of our livestock units, what we have is we built a brand new pig nursery. And so what a nursery is, for those that are not aware, basically when we remove or wean the pigs from the sows, and at our farm it's about 20 days of age after the sow is lactated, those piglets are raised to 20 days of age, we move them into a nursery facility, and at that point they begin to eat solid feed, and then we start to grow them during that nursery phase for about 7 weeks. So they'll be in this facility from when they're about 13 pounds at weaning up to about 70 or so pounds when they get moved then to a different barn on our swine farm into the finishing facility.
And what are those different barns that are there at the swine research facility? Yeah,
we're really excited on to build this new nursery. It replaced an old nursery that was built back in the 1970s. And so this really completes kind of a 25-year plan where we've had to replace all the original facilities that were built in the late 60s or in the 70s. And so also out there at our K-State Swine Farm, it's a 160 sow farrow to finish operation where we have a sow gestation barn. We have a sow farrowing house, again, where the sows will farrow and lactate for the baby piglets. We have 2 nurseries, this new nursery that we just built and also one that was built approximately 11 years ago. We then have a large finishing barn where all the pigs would go after they go through the nursery. There's multiple rooms in that finishing facility that we have for research and teaching. And then we also have a swine enteric center. And really what we do here is we're able to take nursery pigs as well and do different disease challenges to help tackle some of those, particularly the gastrointestinal pathogens such as E. coli, salmonella that plague the swine industry. And so we, in that facility, do research as well to help overcome those challenges.
And why was a new nursery necessary?
Well, there are a couple reasons. One, it's just replacement of facilities. And so, again, the original nursery that was built, while it was still functional, it was very dated. We also, in a complex, we had a series of buildings. 2 of those were no longer used. It was an old grower. In our old farrowing house, we built a new farrowing house that opened in 2001. And so that facility wasn't being used, and then this old nursery. So we were able to tear all those down, and then in its place put this new modern nursery. And so it was really twofold. One, to demolish or get rid of some old facilities that were no longer used, but then also to modernize and expand the room necessary that we needed in a new nursery, because the old nursery, we were simply outgrowing its capacity. As sow productivity has increased, we weaned more piglets, so we need more space, and the old nursery just simply didn't have enough space for today's modern genetics and the amount of pigs that they produce.
What research and teaching are you hoping to be able to complete there?
With this facility, it gives us more pens. We've built it with some extra research capabilities. And so along with our graduate students, we'll utilize this facility a lot for our undergraduate research experiences. In animal science, we have undergraduate research classes. Much of the work that we'll do in this facility will have to do with estimating nutrient requirements, and that could be the amount of amino acids, that could be the response to different energy levels, how they grow, and particularly different feed ingredients that we would feed in the nursery, such as specialty protein products or lactose sources. So we'll be able to do evaluations for all those for different companies wanting to do research and utilize our facilities. One of the real unique or cool things about this facility is we put 4 different water lines. And basically what we're able to do with that is right now in the U.S. and really worldwide swine industry, there's a lot of additives that go into water for nutritional support or to help acidify the diets. We've done a lot of work where if we bring the pH of water down or in the feed down, it can help those newly weaned nursery pigs digest feed and utilize it to a higher degree. We're able to actually test different water treatments, and that could be, again, acidification, that could be electrolytes, different vitamins. Really gives us a new opportunity that we currently did not have the capability at our swine farm to help the commercial industry and ultimately producers that have these products out there. We're going to be able to evaluate different water sources or water treatments by pen in this facility to help the industry with that.
So is this barn something that looks similar to what people could find just on a swine producer's operation?
Yeah, this barn is designed with the exact same equipment and styles and flooring and ventilation that we would find in current modern swine production. The only difference is the amount of pigs in the barn and pigs per pen. So we have 92 pens in this barn, and we'll have 5 pigs per pen. In a commercial barn, you would find it varies widely, but somewhere between 25 up to well over 100 pigs per pen, depending on the design. So while we have a different number of pigs, the equipment, the feeders, the feed lines, waters, the water nipples, the ventilation, all that is identical to what we would find in commercial production. So really that provides tremendous opportunities not only to have research done with the equipment that pigs would be in the same environment in the commercial side, but probably more important is on the teaching side. So as all those different students come out and learn in this facility, they're going to see the exact same type of equipment in this nursery as if they would go onto a commercial farm. So that translation of our facilities, and really that's the same with our sow barn, the finishing, really all of our barns that we've updated over the last 25 years, all of its modern equipment. So when students go out, they've been exposed to that previously to help them in their transition into their jobs.
How are you hoping this benefits swine producers?
Really, at the end of the day, our goal here in our swine nutrition program is to improve efficiency and profitability for swine producers. Really, what we think here is a facility that's going to allow us to test commonly used feed ingredients, feed additives, or developing improved nutrient requirements for nutritionists to formulate diets to improve the profitability of swine producers and to make the rations, hopefully that much better. We really think we have the end user in mind. Sometimes we're doing basic research where it's more discovery, and we'll do that in this nursery to understand some concepts, but then we'll go ahead and take it to the next step for implementation. And so we're really excited about what this can do for producers once that information is developed.
And while we're thinking about things happening with the pig facility here at K-State, do sometimes the waste get recycled from the barns?
Yeah, one of the things that we do at our swine farm, and again, this would be common of all commercial swine producers, we have a deep pit, or it's a 4-foot pit with a full pull plug. All that swine manure ends up in our lagoon system. And so here at K-State, we have a lagoon system, and we also have 2 center pivots. So then the swine manure is pumped through our center pivots, and here we raise corn silage, primarily for our feedlot and our dairy, but we do have the option if we wanted to harvest it for regular corn to feed back on the swine farm. And we also utilize that same ground underneath the pivots for raising a fall crop, and so it allows us to offset our fertilizer costs at our own K-State farm by utilizing the manure as a fertilizer source, again, very typical of what our swine producers and other livestock producers would do when recycling and reusing the manure to raise crops that would get refed back on the farm itself.
What makes you excited as you complete this 25 years of renovations that have taken place?
At many universities, and this is across all facilities, not just livestock at times, but we really are in a place now to have long-term viability with our swine farm in terms of having this investment. It basically, over the period of time, there's been about approximately $4 million invested in these different facilities of getting rid of or tearing down old facilities that were dated, building these modern facilities. It really enables us to have facilities that attract students. They see the modern in what they'll learn by being in these industry-similar barns. And so not only is it great for our stakeholders and our swine producers getting good quality research, equally important is the excitement that we can cause and have with students looking at K-State as an opportunity to further their education and seeing some of the training that can occur in these modern facilities.
Have you seen support for people wanting to see this facility come up?
These barns, they take funds from our industry and those that feel passionate about as well. As example, this nursery, its budget is right at $1.5 million, and really it was funded through multiple ways. Our Livestock and Meat Industry Council, which is a group of producers and that have donated to a foundation, they contributed. Our Kansas Pork Association, they've been long supporters, and they help purchase a lot of equipment directly that's utilized in this barn for teaching and research. Our K-State Swine Nutrition team is a major contributor from dollars we have generated through donations and research in other places. The College of Agriculture at K-State donated, as well as we were fortunate to receive some funding from the Kansas Board of Regents. They have a pool of funds designated for the teardown of old dated facilities, and we were able to utilize that, so we appreciate that contribution. And so really a combination of groups came together to make this a reality.
Joel, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me on.
That was K-State Extension Swine Specialist Joel DeRouchey. We're cutting to a short break now, but we'll be right back. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we end our Friday show with a weather update from K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. Chip, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Chip, last week you mentioned that we are going to see some severe weather this week, and that was the case for many places in Kansas, but not everywhere.
Yeah, if you want moisture in the months of April, May, and June, it's pretty common to see severe weather accompanied with it. Had a pretty impactful storm system that moved across. Really, it came in several waves across the United States over the last 7 days and led to about a week-long period of really active weather. There were over 85 tornado reports across the United States in that 7-day period, multiple large, violent tornadoes. Unfortunately, there were some fatalities in places like St. Louis and Kentucky. We've been pretty lucky across the plains that we had some of that violent weather, but thankfully no one got hurt. We had 18 tornado reports with multiple confirmed tornadoes, one as big as a mile wide that was down in Reno and Pratt County. that was actually on the ground for like 32 miles for over an hour. And it was nocturnal storm and nocturnal tornado for that hour period between 11 p.m. and midnight. And so just a bad time, bad case scenario for folks when you start seeing these kind of tornadoes at night. And we saw that in Kentucky, too, a couple of nights before, where that violent long-track tornado was in the middle of the night. We live in the plains, and with these big dynamic storm systems, we can get these strong low-level jets at night that develop out of the south and move south to north to carry that Gulf moisture northward. And unfortunately, it can also be fuel for violent thunderstorms even after the sun sets. But we did get some rainfall over the last 7 days. We saw a lot of areas of heavier rain amounts that were isolated to where the thunderstorms persisted and trained over the same area. We had some pretty impressive numbers in eastern Smith County with over 4 inches, and more areas around 4 inches in southern Marshall County, and going into the east in Nemaha County, and then a couple other areas in the Flint Hills and around Kansas City. All totals of 3 to 4 inches of rainfall. But for the most part, everyone saw some moisture. And the lightest amounts were in portion of Dodge City, Garden City. The storms kind of went all around. They only got a couple hundredths of an inch. When we look at average precipitation that we need for this week, we get around 1.5 inches in the east to about 1 inch or so in the central part of the state. Then we get to the far west, we're around 0.5 inch on average. So everyone averages a lot of rain. In fact, portions of eastern Kansas, this is the wettest time of the year. And so we need precipitation this time of year to keep up. And then before these pattern change that we saw over the weekend, we're starting to dry out. Many places have gone 14-plus days without wetting moisture, and the ground and the grass is even starting to brown out in places where we just need to get moisture to replenish that soil moisture.
Are we going to see more precipitation as we look into the forecast?
Yeah, we're going to be penalized. We had 2 pretty nice weekends in a row in May. So Memorial Day weekend, the holiday weekend, is going to be plagued with a period of showers and storms, especially weighted to the eastern part of the state. I think everyone gets in on that moisture. As much as maybe 2 inches in the southeast and more like 1/4 inch and you get further west. It does look like there'll be some reprieve on Memorial Day, so hopefully folks can scavenge some of that weekend. Overall temperatures, though, with these periods of showers and storms are going to be kept in check with the cloud cover, with the higher humidity. So afternoon highs are going to be about 5, even 10 degrees below average. It should be in the mid to upper 70s for the time of the year. And so I know folks are starting to think in the back of their head, we need some growing ingredients to help these crops grow. And we have had that cooler weather, and we need to offset that eventually. There is heat still building to our north and west into the northern plains and the western United States. Trying to get that in and kind of kick the can down the road another week with this period of cloud cover and precipitation. But I still think as we move into June, we're going to start to see that heat start to translate further east. And this blocking pattern that we're in, again, very similar to a summer-like pattern, is not moving. And so it's going to take a while to break that down and finally shift those warmer conditions in here for June.
Chip, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yep, thanks for having me.
That was K-State meteorologist Chip Redmond. That's all we have for you this week on Agriculture Today, and we'll be back with you on Tuesday as we will not have a show on Monday for Memorial Day.